Thank you for being here. I'm sorry we're starting a few minutes late, but it's one of the things that happens. Congressional leaders are meeting with people in the White House to figure out the budget fiscal cliff, and the former Prime Minister of Lebanon has kept waiting a few minutes, but he's here, and we're very happy to welcome back to the center. He was last here, I believe, in May of 2011. Fuad Siniora was educated at the American University in Beirut. You have his and got a master's there as well. He's been in the financial world. He was Minister of Finance and he was Prime Minister of his country. And he's setting a very good tone as opposition leader in the Mustaqbil bloc in the Lebanese parliament. He's setting a very good tone because he's in almost daily contact with both the president of the country and the prime minister of the country, opposition and government trying to work on the same page, I guess. Fuad, welcome back to the Wilson Center.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. Why don't you talk for 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you today. It's, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, it's a really pleasure to me to be here with you at the Wilson Center this morning to talk about the Arab transition and about Lebanon at these truly very historic times. The Arab world is currently, is it working one?
Yeah,
I'm heard. Is it? Yeah. The Arab world is currently witnessing two fundamental transformations, which in my opinion are irreversible. The first is the dynamism within Arab society, where the walls of fear and silence are collapsing. The revolutionary movements have launched a process of transformation towards more freedom and more representative and accountable governments. We have seen elections, televised debates, public expressions and demonstrations on the streets of the countries where these things were unimaginable only a couple of years ago. The lid is off the genie of freedom, the lid is off and the genie of freedom is out of the bottle. The Arab world is being transformed from populations that were afraid of their leaders to leaders that are becoming accountable to their populations. The second transformation is in Islamic politics, or what is referred to as political Islam. Today, Islamic parties are at the helm in Tunisia and Egypt, the first of the Arab Spring countries. These parties are coming out from the intellectual shelter of forced marginalization and oppression to the challenging demands of real-world policy issues and choices. Governing is providing them with a lesson that driving from the front seat is very different than driving from the back seat. They are also quickly realizing that they need to embrace modernity and openness, i.e., they need to change, or else they will be changed. The world needs to judge them on performance, not on preconceived notions, nor on their rhetoric. And a key criterion will be their genuine commitment to the civil state, where all citizens are equal in rights and obligations, regardless of race, religion, or political association. Underlying both transformations towards more democratic governance and more open and modern political Islam is yet another revolution that has been taking place. I'm speaking of communication technology and access to information and knowledge that have exploded in the Arab world over the past 10 years, helping break the barriers of time and place. My dear friends, the information revolution is irreversible. So is the transformation in governance and in political Islam. But there are many hurdles and pitfalls along the way that can make the road longer and much more painful. One of these is the misguided, but to some extent self-fulfilling notion that somehow Arabs and Muslims are different than other nations. For them, democracy cannot apply. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, the Arab exception is an illusion. So is the Islamic exception. The evolutionary change that has transformed other societies in Southern Europe, South America, and Southeast Asia in earlier decades has now reached our shores and deserts, our cities, as well as our slums. But certain perceptions persist, and they feed on setbacks. Take the issue of the amateur movie, The Innocence of Islam, best described by President Obama as crude and disgusting. It goes without saying that the acts of violence that we witnessed in reaction to it in some parts of the world are repugnant and immoral by all standards, including the standards and values of Islam itself. The violent reactions made news and received wide coverage all over the world. This is understandable. It is a fact, however, that those who reacted violently to the movie are a very small minority of Arabs and Muslims. And that should not eclipse the truth about the broader Arab realities. In the past, dictators used to exaggerate the threat of militant Islam in the Arab world to justify their ruthless rule, especially to the West. This needs to be better recognized by our friends in the West. For a long time, many believed that peace and security in the Arab and Muslim worlds can only be imposed by autocratic regimes. Unfortunately, these notions are revived when we have incidents like those associated with the anti-Islamic movie. They are false. They are false and need to be countered by us all. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing but an Arab world that is free, democratic, and prosperous is the antithesis of militant extremism. Nothing guarantees lasting stability and minorities' rights, but full respect of the process towards the democratization, because democracy, unlike other forms of government, has the ability to self-correct. But we should also remember that the process of change is often long and painful, and even disorderly. Unlike transitions of previous decades elsewhere, the Arab Spring is happening under the scrutiny of the global eye, contributing to high expectations, but also frustrations when setbacks happen. But bumps on the road are to be expected. But the road should be traveled nonetheless. The response to obstacles should be more liberty, not less liberty. More democracy and free speech, not less. The answer is more Arab Spring, not the same old Arab autumn. The West has a responsibility and an interest in empowering the forces of moderation in the region, as well as fostering and providing support for reforms at all levels, political, social, and economic. This brings me to another challenge: people's expectations of quick economic dividends from the political transition. At a time of global economic deterioration, collapsing investment flows, and rising unemployment. Even in normal times, things usually get worse before they get better after major upheavals. The main responsibility in facing such economic challenges falls naturally on the newly elected governments to put together policies for short-term stabilization and recovery, and for longer-term growth and development. These policies should include reforming social safety nets for those most vulnerable to the transition. Most importantly, policies need to fast-track the necessary reforms in the political, judicial, and administrative institutions, and in the business climate, in order to boost investments and enable the private sector to create the 50 million new jobs needed in the Arab world over the coming decade. In this context, now is the time for stronger Arab economic integration that is based on shared interests and objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, I'm quite optimistic about the ability of our Arab world to face the road bumps and high expectations. But it is another challenge that I'm truly worried about: ending the age-old injustice in Palestine and the associated Arab-Israeli conflict. The unresolved problem in Palestine continues to fuel extremism. Moreover, Iran has sought to hijack the causes of the region, ranging from defending the honor of Islam and its prophet to Jerusalem and Palestine, but for Iranian national objectives. Iran's support of the Syrian regime, suppressing a legitimate quest of the Syrian people for democracy and freedom, is happening directly and through Hezbollah's armed personnel, all under the pretext of standing up to Israel. This is the same excuse that the Syrian regime itself has used for 40 years to oppress and imprison the Syrian people. Recent statements were issued by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard clearly threatening a response by Hezbollah against Israel out of Lebanon if Iran is attacked. And just a couple of weeks ago, Hezbollah, and without the consent of the Lebanese people or the Lebanese government, sent a drone into Israeli airspace. We as Lebanese cannot continue to live and progress under the continued threat of fear of being used and abused to become a launching pad. It is ironic that during the times of the Arab Spring, Lebanon, which for the longest time was the regional pioneer in democracy and freedom, is now being taken hostage by a theocracy and a dictatorship, all in the name of the struggle for justice in Palestine. The recent killing of Brigadier General Wissam al-Hassan, the head of the only Lebanese security agency that is unpenetrated by Syria and Iran, is linked to his uncovering of a diabolic plot by the Syrian regime to explode the situation in Lebanon. The assassination coming after assassinations attempts on two prominent opposition leaders seems to be part of a multi-track plan to enhance Iranian grip on Lebanon during the space of time until the collapse of the Syrian regime. That's why we have asked for a government change and for a new non-partisan government to be formed so that to reduce the tension, truly insulate Lebanon from what is happening in Syria, and prepare for free elections next summer. We cannot entrust the current government with any of these tasks. Ladies and gentlemen, the re-election of President Obama is a great opportunity to tackle the pending issues facing our region. Many have expressed worries regarding the stronger involvement of fundamental elements in Syria. But let's not forget that for the longest time, the uprising in Syria was a peaceful one, that the chants on the streets were all about peace and national unity. The atrocities committed by the regime have militarized the conflict. It is the ultimate proof of the nature of this brutal regime, that it used so much force against an uprising that started as a call for reform, not for regime change. The National Coalition for Revolutionary Forces that was established in Doha a few days ago is a major step that needs to be encouraged and supported. Urgently needed is a quick transition that reverses the dangerous slide towards more violence, which we condemn from whichever side it originates. We also hope that a second term will provide President Obama with the necessary impetus to tackle the Palestinian problem. I hope people like you, who are researchers and opinion makers in this vivid democracy, play a role in promoting the argument that a stable democratic Middle East is not possible without a viable Palestinian state. This will contribute significantly to strengthen the forces of moderation and fight extremism, promote regional investment, growth, development, and job creation, and facilitate the transition towards democratic rule. Today, Palestine is not on the US agenda. It should be. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, the world has become very small. We are all in it together. It is our choice today to either fall in the trap of those whose agendas thrive on permanent conflict and prejudice, or actively pave the way for a better world, a world of mutual respect and inclusion, a world of shared values and objectives, a world of security and prosperity for all. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, thank you very much for your time. I really look forward for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good statement to set the stage. I just want to recognize that my two bosses, the chairman of the board of the Wilson Center, Ambassador Joseph Gildenhorn, and the president and CEO, Jane Harmon, are both here. And the floor is open. I don't know if either of you want to start with a question.
You know, I understand the Palestinian situation is important, but I think jobs and investments, promoting that is the key to a stable Middle East. And I would ask for your comments how you can stimulate investment in Lebanon.
Well, I share with you completely your remark is that definitely jobs are needed, and growth is very important, and providing a better climate for investment flows is extremely important. But at the same time, the other issue is as important. I'm not trying to really put a competition between both of them, but both are really important and essential. Now, there is no, let's say, difference between us regarding the necessity, first of all, on the one hand, to emphasize the need for more, let's say, cooperation within the Arab world. As you know, in the Arab world, there are countries that are, let's say, that are in need of capital, and they have a population explosion within these countries. And there are other countries who are who have, let's say, excess and surplus in terms of capital and ability to invest. So that's why, let's say, I would like to really mention in here, before coming to another factor about this matter, that in the summit, the Arab summit, that the Arab Economic Summit that took place in 2009 in Kuwait, beginning in 2009, Kuwait, I really proposed some sort of a real common effort to be made by the within the context of the Arab League to encourage more investment flows, and in particular investments that can really be made in certain important sectors, whether it is in terms of transportation, energy, water. These are major, let's say, areas that need substantial investments, but this would really create the right environment for better investment flows. For sure, there are certain requirements in terms of judicial reform, let's say legal reforms that has to be introduced within the Arab world to encourage these flow of investments and to comfort the investors about the better climate that would have to really prevail, so that more jobs can be created and growth can be achieved. Otherwise, the situation will be very alarming in the coming months and years. On the other hand, there has been an effort that was made by the Group of 8 following the Arab Spring that prevailed in a number of Arab countries, that they said that they are going to, let's say, provide a fund of about $40 billion that will be used as investments in the Arab Spring countries, particularly in Egypt as well as in Tunisia and hopefully in Syria, after the great destruction that took place in Syria, which is sparing nothing, even the historical sites, you see. So this is what I believe, that a joint effort on both sides, on the Arab side as well as the international side, that would create a better environment and will encourage moderation. This is an item that we have always to keep in mind, so that we can combat the calls for extremism in the Arab world.
I have 3 hands up here and one. Oh, Jane, sorry.
You don't have to call on me.
No.
That's right. I'm delighted to be here, and I thought that the comments were very clear and very brave. And I'm not sure whether I'm disagreeing with my board chairman, but I think the resolving the Israeli-Palestine issue is imperative, and I hope our president makes a visit to the region very soon and says something like that. I think that would be useful. But in that regard, I'm curious what you think about the Palestinian effort, the petition that's been filed in the United Nations. Do you think that that's a constructive gesture? And if not, do you think there is some kind of a face-saving compromise that would get it off the table, especially if there's a serious chance that negotiations for a final agreement could be restarted?
Well, I would like to really request from you, if anyone puts himself in the shoes of the Palestinians nowadays, after really having experienced so many setbacks and disappointments, and they are being driven and pushed continuously towards despair and frustration, so on. Having said that, there has been an attempt made by the Palestinian Authority to go to the United Nations rather than the Security Council in order to really achieve recognition for their Palestinian state, which everybody agrees. And following all the conferences that were made, starting from Madrid, later on what was proposed by the Arab Peace Initiative, and all sorts of things, and all led to really nothing, effectively, that they are going to the United Nations for that. However, let me tell you my personal opinion, and I think it is something that one should really work on it. Applying for the United Nations is a route that has been adopted by Mahmoud Abbas, President Mahmoud Abbas, as a way of going out of this, let's say, problem that has not been resolved up till now. However, we have a new situation, a new president that has been just elected for the second term, and really counting on what he has made as representation in his appearance in Cairo and in Istanbul for about 3.5 years ago. I think it is really worth giving him the chance and trying to find out what he can do. And in this regard, if I may suggest that Mahmoud Abbas make the application but not request for a voting at the United Nations. I think this is a good, let's say, step uncompleted in order to give the president. And we really count on him. And there's a great deal of expectations in the Arab world from the new term of the president. We believe in him. And I think it is time to really see what can be done. The president has said that I want to really have my legacy, and I want to leave the United States after 4 years with a better America. And I think it is really something that we really expect from him, that after 4 years he can leave the world with a better world, with a really a solution for the Arab-Israeli conflict that has been there unresolved for 70 years.
I want to say it's a live webcast going on, and there are some people in an overflow room, and a couple of questions may come from there, but I have 3 or 4 right here, and we'll start with Haneen. Identify yourself quickly and ask a short question. Thanks.
Okay, hi. My name is Haneen Ghaddar. I'm a public policy scholar here at the center, but I live in Beirut.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to see you here,
Thank
and
you.
I have a very short question. In Lebanon, it seems that the Sunni street is the only street that is now lacking leadership, with Hariri out of the country and March 14. Supporters in general are disillusioned. And the Salafists seem to be gaining more power and popularity within the Sunni street. So moderate Sunnis, moderate leaders like yourself, are losing the Sunni street to the Salafists gradually, slowly but surely. What are you trying to do to regain the popularity in the Sunni street, especially that Hezbollah is very happy to see people like Ahmed al-Asir in Saida and others like him gaining this popularity. It's very beneficial for Hezbollah. Thank you.
Let me start answering the solution from the very end and then go to the beginning. As far as Mr. Hariri, Saad Hariri, who has been outside for reasons that is known everywhere because of the dangers that are there. But nevertheless, I can tell you that we strongly believe that Saad Hariri should come back the soonest possible. And I can safely say that Saad Hariri most probably will be in Lebanon before year end. So this is as far as Saad Hariri, because he has let's say the symbolic feature that nobody other than him has, and being the son of the martyr Rafiq Hariri, and because of what he has already done during his tenure at the premiership of the Council of Ministers, as well as over the work that he has done so far. So this is something that I'm quite sure that he is going to be back. And I'm pushing strongly in that direction. Now, on the other hand, concerning what you call it, the Salafist or the extremists in the Sunni street in Lebanon, there is a certain statement that I've learned it from my days in the economic and financial fields. They say that bad currency drives good currency out of circulation. There is a feeling that as if all the Sunni streets are becoming, let's say, extremists and Salafis. That is not true at all, at all. There are definitely, in every community, there are certain groups who are, let's say, extremists or Salafists. And not, by the way, not all Salafists are those who really believe in the use of force or violence or something of the sort. But whenever you look at a white hole, and there are a few spots, black spots, only thing that you see are the black spots, and you don't see the white hole. Effectively, I would like to use in here a certain observation to you. In last year, in May 2011, bin Laden was killed. Have you noticed a certain observation that none in the Arab world stood up and said a word of sorrow after the death of bin Laden? What does this mean? That the majority on the Arab world, they don't subscribe to the way and behavior and methods that are being used by bin Laden. The majority in the Islamic world, they are effectively pious Muslims. They are ordinary people that they want to really live and lead a life like everybody else. And they are moderates. It is our duty to let them come back into circulation. They are there. We have to bring them into circulation, not to drive them out of circulation. I am really confident they are going to come.
Yeah, the lady over here.
Thank you, Mr. Siniora. My name is Yara Zghaib, and I work with the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy. In your speech, you talked a lot about what you would like the West to do for Lebanon, and you called for a change in government in Lebanon. My question for you is, what is it that you would like the Lebanese government to do right now, whether it is this government or an interim government as you are proposing? What would you like to see the government do to counter religious extremism and promote religious cooperation in Lebanon, so that economic growth and all these things that you're calling for, so that Lebanon truly is not negatively affected by the Arab Spring and can be a good model for the rest of the states around it?
Well, the first part of your question regarding the present government, you say since the time when Prime Minister Mikati was mandated to form a cabinet, I personally, based on my relationship and friendship to Mr. Mikati, I suggested to him that the best solution to have then a government is to have a non-partisan government and some sort of a technocratic government and a cabinet of 24, so that this can really help in reducing the level of tension in the country. And along the model that was done by Najib Mikati himself in the year 2005. And that will prepare the environment for holding the elections later on. And despite that the political landscape changed between the date he was mandated and the date where he formed the cabinet, i.e. he was mandated in January and he formed in June. And at that time, things were developing within the Arab Spring countries and particularly in Syria. And he did not really act according to the changes that are taking place at that time, which really requires more than ever a non-partisan government. During the time since the formation of the government, there has been a great deal of things that were done. I acknowledge the fact that the government has made certain two steps, good steps, i.e. financing the International Tribunal, as well as adopting a policy of what you call it, a dissociation policy vis-a-vis what's happening in Syria. I don't want to go into the details about why he did that and so on and so forth. At least, I mean, he made the financing as well as the dissociation principle. And I personally said on record that if I were a prime minister, I would have adopted let's say, a policy of dissociation, or what you call it, na'i bin nafs. But other than that, we find out the performance of the government by its formation to begin with has led to heightened tension in the country. There was an imbalance that was created that cannot be palatable within the Lebanese political context. And after that, we can see how the government has been performing, how the various members of this present, let's say, cabinet were conflicting among each other. And everybody was reading about that and seeing this and the problems that they created in various contexts, not alone. I'm talking about the level of tension in the country, but on the security level, on the relationship among the Lebanese, how they made problems with that, how the policies of witch hunting that they have started, how they really led to, let's say, conflict among Arab countries, where we found out so many people blocking the road towards the airport and some people coming up that we will kidnap this and that, to the extent that the state of Qatar has made a statement that if anything happens to any one of our national people, Qataris in Lebanon, we are going to send all the Lebanese away from Qatar into Lebanon. I mean, this is something unprecedented in the history of political life in Lebanon. And not only that, the economic problems that were initiated by this government is even unprecedented. Let me tell you, over the years 7, 8, 9, and 10, the Lebanese economy generated growth consistently, year after year, of about 8.5% every year. And all of a sudden, in 2011, growth went down to 1.5%, and in 2012 to 0. Somebody says, well, Mr. Prime Minister, sorry, I mean, are you forgetting what's happening in Syria? And my answer is that what's happening in Syria could have been transformed by Lebanon, as Lebanon did over the past 50 years, what was happening in the Arab world, of converting problem situations into an opportunity for Lebanon. Mind you, in the years 7, 8, 9, and 10, Lebanon passed through most difficult times. You know, we had the Israeli invasion. We had the problem of continued assassinations in Lebanon. 3, we had the problem of Mukhayyan Nahr al-Barid. We had the international financial crisis. In spite of that, Lebanon did that. It is the attitude that was created by this particular government that led the economy towards shambles as it is now, with no growth. And not only this, for the first time since over 12 years, Lebanon generated a deficit in its balance of payment, from its continued surplus in the previous years to a deficit of $2 billion in 2011 and more than that in 2012. Primary balance in the budget started to decline. And more than that, for the first time since years, after really making an effort to reduce the ratio of debt to GDP, we've started finding out that debt to GDP is increasing back again. So all these are economic indicators that are clearly stating how the situation is deteriorating. What we are proposing is not to really remove this government and to be replaced by March 14. No. What we are proposing is to have a non-partisan government that can help in the reduction of tension in the country and can really address the economic and social conditions properly. And to avoid a problem that is started by this government. Can you tell me about a country in the world now would dare to make a step towards increasing salaries and wages in the country as a populist move in order to win the elections by increasing salaries and wages by 70 to 120%, by increasing the bill of wages by about $1.7 to $2 billion like that, while all the economic indicators are not really suggesting anything of the sort? Tell me about a country under the present circumstances in the world that would dare to do such a thing, had it not been because of political, aspirations to convert something that appease the people so that they can vote for it. But at the expense of what? At the expense of sending the economy into shambles? With no consideration to that? That's why we are proposing this. And this is not to be replaced by March 14. I said a non-partisan government that can really take all the Lebanese together, knowing that, there are certain issues that still to be addressed, i.e. issues that has to do with the arms of Hezbollah. This is something that is subject to be discussed within the, let's say, the dialogue committee that was created. Although during the past six or 7 years, we have been in discussion, and we have agreed on to so many things that we will have to implement, and none was implemented. To the contrary, this particular government, as you know, there were certain things that were agreed upon regarding the International Tribunal. And there are 4 people who are indicted by the International Tribunal. And the government, whose major component in the government is Hezbollah, is refusing to hand over the 4 indictees. Not only this, the one who was accused of preparing the plot for assassinating Sheikh Boutros Harb, the government is not doing any effort in order to hand over this. Not only this, even the data for the telecommunication that is necessary for the security agencies of the government to identify who are making, let's say, certain plots for assassinations, the government from time to time says no, or at least the minister of telecommunication, with the consent of the government or without the consent of the government, he is really electing not to really hand over the data that is necessary for identifying these plots of assassination. So that's why, one can really go into a long list of things why we think it is helpful for the government, for the Lebanese and for the country to change a government that will really regain balance within the context of the political life in Lebanon, that will ultimately lead to a condition that is conducive for running the upcoming elections, in a fair and just manner.
I don't know about your timing. That's a very good statement. I have 6 questions out there that I know of. I'm tempted to do the awful thing, which is to give everybody 30 seconds to ask a question, and then you can pick and choose what you want to do. All right?
I will
Here.
I will answer.
David Ottaway. Yeah.
Dave Ottaway, senior scholar, former Washington Post.
I know you well.
Now that we have a national coalition of revolutionary and opposition forces in Syria, the debate is underway about whether the U.S. and others should provide arms to the opposition, specifically anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles. What is your advice about what the U.S. should do at this point?
Related to that from the overflow room, and then give it to Laura next. But related to that, Fuad, there's a question. If the Lebanese were to ask President Obama and his new administration to help the Lebanese avoid the Syrian conflict spillover to Lebanon, what would be your one or two top requests? And then Laura,
Great,
the
thank
third.
you. Okay, great. Thanks so much. Two quick questions. How can we have a nonpartisan cabinet when everything in Lebanon is determined by confession and sect? And then the second question is, what kind of ideas do you have to enhance the national dialogue so that it can be inclusive of Lebanon's population? Right now, it's just a group, an old political male elite sitting around a table. And I'm just wondering if you have any ideas of how we can do a better job at that. Thank you so much.
We say
Better-
male,
better-
pale, and
better
stale
job.
around here.
Better job to what? Better job to what?
I'm sorry.
Better job to what? I didn't understand what you.
The question about the national dialogue in
Yes.
Lebanon, what ideas you have to make it more representative. Right now, what you have is an old male political elite that is sitting around a table. And I'm just wondering if we could do a better job at that, what ideas you might have.
Laura, that's sensitive for some of us. Related to that from the overflow room, which Lebanese leaders are nonpartisan and could lead a new transitional government? And then your question. Yeah, well,
Victor Chaloub, Al-Bayan newspaper. Good to see you here, Prime Minister, Mr. Prime
Thank you.
Minister. You're talking about change,
Yes.
government change.
Yes.
How do you read the latest statement of Hassan Nasrallah when he said the government is doing its work? That means it's there to stay. Secondly, on a scale 1 to 10, what is the probability of having new government in the foreseeable future before the election? Thank you.
and the last one, Maha.
If there is any movement, Shiite movement, who really wants to get out of the Hezbollah and they want to be Lebanese, is there a movement, strong movement, they want to be more Lebanese than Iranian?
Okay, I'm sorry, the rest of you, you have what, one, it's a 15-second question? Counterfeit medicine?
Medicine, yes, in Lebanon. And why Lebanon is not able to have like electricity 24 hours a day and water. And I'm from Saida, so I know that we had for a long time the garbage dump. I mean, if we cannot solve the garbage dump, I mean, that's really, I don't understand. These are the issues. And I'm not an economist, Mr. Siniora, but I know the remittance from outside Lebanon help Lebanon tremendously, and sometimes it's a curse because it lifts the burden of the government instead of the government being under pressure, you know, to really act. We have these remittance that comes from outside. From
Okay.
so, if we can talk about these issues and if you
Yes,
had
yes,
time,
yes,
I'd
yes.
ask you about Al-Asir because I'm from Saida.
I
I've never
think-
seen
yeah.
anybody, anything like it.
لا حبيبتي, don't worry, yes. Don't worry. I'm
Okay.
very pleased to really meet with you.
I think there's enough in all those
Yeah,
questions for
yeah,
about 3
yeah, yeah,
hours.
Very nice questions. Very nice questions. Yeah. Well, I mean, question number one regarding Syria and this national coalition that has been just formed. I'm really most happy to learn about the formation of this national coalition. And this really opens a real window of opportunity that this brings together the various groups of the opposition to sit down together and work together after years. As you know, they were not possible in Syria of 40 years of dictatorship that there was no opposition. Yani. I mean, they were all underground, not able to get together or meet each other. So that's an important step. Definitely, as I said in my statement, that the demonstrations were really chanting in the street, we wanted peaceful. And they never really asked for a regime change. And what they really wanted at the beginning only dignity. This is what they are asking for. It started with pulling the nails of the students, you see. And what's really required now is more leadership in this campaign. And the United States can play an important role in this. Leadership in bonding them together and make it really succeed. And really to have a clear vision, as just been saying at the White House now, is that it has to be clear what is really wanted to have a civil state in Syria, where everybody feels that he belongs and is protected, and there is no difference between among the Syrians, whether because of race, because of religion, because of whatever it is, no difference. This is a message that has to go across everywhere. Definitely, it is not the Syrian opposition that has been has been pushing towards violence or use of force. It is the regime that started and has still been going on, and it's one of its kind that we find that the regime is using the aerial force against the inhabitants and bombarding various spots in the country. What is expected from the United States? To take leadership, help in the humanitarian aspects, and so on and so forth. Let's make it very clear. And I said it, and I'm telling it to you here. Nobody is expecting or really want the American boots to be on the ground at all. We don't want. Definitely, there are ways of helping them, of stopping, let's say, the aerial bombardments. And it's not a problem, actually, to find some who can really provide the necessary weapons. Even the United States or others, they can really provide. It is important to help in terms of bonding the coalition on the one hand and address the other issues, which is basically Russia. Russia is, in fact, has been blocking any progress towards finding a solution to the problem because of its support to the regime. Although there are some signs of a change in the position of Russia. I think this matter should be pursued by the Obama administration and by others. There has been a good step, which has been really the recognition of this coalition by the GCC countries, by the Arab League, by France, by Britain, and others are going to follow. I believe that is really possible. Once something can be done with Russia and comforting Russia about its interests in the region, we are not there to find, let's say, to confront with Russia. And we are not there to confront with Iran as well, you see. We are, I mean, let me here even sidestep by saying that we are against any military action against Iran. So we don't believe in the use of force, and to start with, but I mean, this is what really happened in Syria. So on the basis of this, I think real progress can be achieved in the coming weeks and months, because there is no possibility for coming back to the status ante at all. This is something impossible for President Assad to be on top. And I think right messages has to be really drawn from what really happened during the past few days. And I think it is high time for President Assad to learn well from these and stop his status of being in complete denial of what's happening. I noted. I put down your question about top requests from President Obama. I'll come to that. Regarding the non-partisan government, well, let me tell you, my friend. I mean, when we're talking about non-partisan government, somebody says, is there anybody who is non-partisan in Lebanon? Well, I mean, there is in Lebanon, everybody is politicized. But not everybody is political. Yes, we can find people who are not political in Lebanon to head the government and to be members of such a government. The government that was formed by Najib Miati in the year 2005, well, except for Najib Miati, who did not really run for the elections, by the way. Huh? Yani, you can get somebody who is not running for the elections. I mean, somebody who is really politicized and to head the government, and you can get some other people, like the ones who were members of the government of Miati, I mean, along these lines. There are plenty of people who are good people who can really assume such a position and prepare for the elections to be really done in a fair and objective manner. So there can be, it's not impossible. And we have precedents in the history of Lebanon several times, not only one time, to have a non-partisan government. The dialogue, yes, we strongly believe in dialogue. In spite of the fact that over the past 7 years, we agreed on so many things, and none of these items that we agreed to was implemented. But we will not lose hope. And it is our motto not to resort to violence or the use of force. We don't believe in it. It is not in our interest to do it. We are not equipped to do it. And we are not going to carry weapons against our countrymen. We don't believe in it. Straight. So, dialogue, we will continue using dialogue. And more efforts are going to really be done in this respect. Definitely, the participants in the dialogue committee, they are not coming from the air. They are all elected people. They really represent the community. So they are not really coming out of the air. They are just people who were selected by this and that, you see. No? So whether in the first group that was done under the auspices of the Speaker of the House, that was in 2005, 2006, or after that, once the President has, President Sulaiman came in, so he selected a group who are really representative of the various communities in the country. So they are actually the ones that can really talk about these matters. Definitely, when we talk about the dialogue, we don't want to create a new constitution, because this is not a constitutional organization. The constitution is clear. We have the parliament, we have the government, we have the judicial authorities, we have the president. These are the constitutional institutions. We don't want to really repeat, but because there is one issue to be discussed in the dialogue, which is the matter that has to do with the weapons of Hezbollah, nothing else. So this is the thing that will have to be discussed. And the matters that will have to be addressed, other than that, will have to be taken up by the government. This is the constitutional institution that would have to address this. Somebody asked who is the leader that can. I mean, there are plenty of Lebanese who can really become like that. And just, I mean, if you sit down and you can jot down tens of names that can be possible to become members of the proposed non-partisan government. You said that Hassan Nasrallah does not want. Definitely, I respect the opinion of everybody in the country, but I don't know whether, I mean, we are in an autocratic country where there's somebody, a sole leader in the country. I don't think so. We respect his opinion. He has to say his mind, but he is not the only person that runs the things in Lebanon. I don't think that they are from time to, I mean, let me tell you something. In the year 2007, when we had the terrorist attack on in the Mukhayyam Nahwi al-Barid, you remember that? Hassan Nasrallah said, "This is a red line." I was in the government then, and I was the prime minister, and said, "This is a red line." If I were to re-listen to Hassan Nasrallah at that time, now you can imagine what would have been the case in Lebanon at that time. We courageously took the decision that in the interest of the country we cannot sustain such a situation in which they can take over the north then, and you can imagine what should have been the case. So this is an example of a case that Hassan Nasrallah said, we don't accept, but nevertheless, we took the decision according to our responsibilities at that time, and I am really very convinced that the thing that we did was the right thing.
One more minute, and then we'll
regarding the Shiites, yes, I can tell you, frankly, that my personal assessment that there are increasing number within the Hezbollah organization and within the Shiite community, many have started to question. Now you are nodding. Huh? Now you are nodding. Yes. Huh? Are asking questions where Hezbollah is taking the Shiite community. Yes. And this is the time when we really should extend the hand to all the Shiites in Lebanon. They are Lebanese 100% like me and even more. And good Lebanese. We have to extend the hand to them. We have to provide them with the good bosom. We ourselves and themselves, we are in the same boat, and we have to really work together. Yeah. Regarding what you have said about the scandal of medicines, yes, there are. And this is a case of which a group of autocratic thinking that is prevailing. We have seen so many scandals in Lebanon committed by, many people are bad, you see. It's not only Hezbollah. There are good people among them for sure. But some of them are under the protection of Hezbollah, are committing serious crimes. Serious crimes. The scandal of the medicine is one of them. The scandal of the Captagon producing drugs in Lebanon, yes. They brought it inside Lebanon, and in one of the hawzat even, under the protection of this, they were producing drugs and selling it inside and outside the country, and many others. I want to assure you that in Sidon, you should really go back to the news, and there are certain great progress that has been made regarding the dump site, and that we are arranging a solution. هلا حبيبتي هلا لا 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 شو مين بده يوقفك انت؟ No, nobody will stop you at all هلا I don't want to really bother everybody with little things that pertaining to the city of Sidon. I will talk to you about it later on. But the importance of remittances into Lebanon are very important. Lebanon definitely was and may continue to be a net exporter of talents in let's say in the region. Definitely we should attempt everything in order to create a better environment for investments in in Lebanon and in the Arab world, better investments that can really create jobs. We need at least 40 to 50,000 new jobs in Lebanon every year. And without a proper environment, this cannot be really achieved. So this is something this is the objective of let's say the government in Lebanon, any government in Lebanon, like it is the objective of the government in the United States. This is the most important item on the agenda of any government. When I speak about the top requests from Obama, definitely I know that the president has a very busy, let's say, list of priorities. I don't deny that. But I think, let's say, the most important thing, what really we want from President Obama, from this let's say, term, first of all, is the Arab-Israeli conflict. This is one. As far as Lebanon is concerned, definitely we don't look for President Obama that he's the one who changes governments, you see, but at least to show a continued position regarding staying faithful to the principles that always were raised in the United States, which is democracy, which is freedom, which is promoting and supporting moderation. These are the real messages that we want from the president in its policies regarding Lebanon. And when we talk about changing government, yes, we want him to really support the political change in the government, because there was a certain effort at one time which was not understood. All of a sudden, following the assassination of Wissam al-Hassan, we found out the 5 members of the Security Council in an unprecedented visit to the president, saying that we want to stay the government. Because what? Because of, what do you call it, stability and void, to avoid void in Lebanon. Stability, I mean, this is an argument that is raised by those who are carrying the weapons. If you do this, we will have instability in the country. All the dictators in the Arab world use this argument for decades, that if you want to change, then if you want to change us, then the result will be instability. I mean, this will be subjected to intimidation and blackmail by these regimes or by those who are in power. This is not acceptable. As far as void is concerned, as I said, our constitution is very clear. There is no void in Lebanon. The caretaker government can do anything, as it's needed. There came a time when we had a caretaker government in 1973, and it had to declare a state of emergency, and it did. So there is no problem of void, as they say, because a caretaker government, it can really assume the job until the cabinet is formed. Definitely, in here we have to respect what the Constitution says, that you cannot really agree about the new coming government before the government really resigns. This is contrary to the democratic rule that we have. It has to resign, and then, because otherwise what you are saying, you're telling Hezbollah, okay, you don't want a government. Okay, let's sit with you and try to convince you. We will convince you. He was not convinced. And nothing will be achieved. A government resigns, and it takes the role of a caretaker government, and it carries really all the necessary work that has to be needed. So this is what is required from President Obama. I think as soon as he is over from the fiscal cliff, as you say, yes, as soon as he's over from that, I think soon enough, as they say, one has to hammer it while it's hot. Has to really do it in order to support democracy in Lebanon and in the Arab world, and the transformation that's taking place, and not to forget at all the real problem in the Arab world that's still unresolved, which is the Arab-Israeli conflict. We need President Obama to write his name in history as leaving after 4 years with a better world.
Thank you very much. You've been generous with your time, Mr. Prime Minister. We enjoyed very much having you here. You're always welcome at the Wilson Center. Thank you.